Turns out those custom purple geometric curtains I spent a small fortune on weren't just decorative. They were actually infidelity detection devices. There I was, Wednesday morning, scrolling through Facebook in my silk pajamas while sipping overpriced coffee that Curtis insisted we import directly from some life-changing roastery in Seattle. My husband of 12 years was supposedly on day 2 of his heroic mission to help a buddy with a construction project in Mexico. The same husband who once needed YouTube tutorials to hang a shower curtain rod was suddenly channeling his inner HGTV host south of the border. Sure, Curtis. I nearly choked on my Ethiopian blend when Esme Wilcox's perfectly filtered face appeared in my feed. Waking up in paradise? Blessed Cancun life, she captioned, with a location tag confirming exactly where paradise apparently was. But it wasn't her annoying hashtags or suspiciously fresh-faced morning selfie that stopped my scrolling finger. It was what was behind her. Those unmistakable purple geometric curtains I'd custom ordered from that pretentious designer in New York who charged me triple because they were conceptual textile art, not just curtains. The same curtains that hung exclusively in the master bedroom of our Cancun vacation home. The vacation home where my husband was definitely not supposed to be, and certainly not with Esme. I've been divorced 3 times, but it was never my fault. Wilcox from Unit 7B. I set down my coffee mug so carefully you'd think it contained nitroglycerin instead of caffeine. With the steady hands of someone who's about to find out if their entire life is a lie, I walked to our bathroom. And there it was, Curtis's wedding ring, sitting on the marble countertop like a gold-plated confession. The man who'd kissed me goodbye 48 hours earlier with promises to miss me every second had managed to forget the symbol of our marriage, but remembered to pack our neighbor. How thoughtful. Well, this is a plot twist worthy of my Monday night book club, I muttered to my reflection, which stared back with an expression that said, "Honey, you knew something was off when he suddenly developed an interest in Mexican architecture." I picked up Curtis's wedding ring, slipping it onto my thumb where it hung loose. 12 years of marriage suddenly felt as substantial as this circle of metal, hollow in the middle and smaller than it appeared from a distance. My phone buzzed with a text from Curtis. "Miss you, babe. Working hard here. The construction site has terrible reception. Talk tomorrow?" I laughed so hard I nearly swallowed his wedding ring. Construction site? Sure. That's one way to describe what was being erected in our vacation house. I texted back with the digital equivalent of a Stepford wife smile. "Miss you too. Don't work too hard." What Curtis didn't know was that beneath my perfectly crafted emoji heart, a different kind of construction was beginning. The careful, methodical blueprints of his destruction. You see, before becoming a professor of comparative literature at Northwestern, I spent 4 years analyzing how the great literary characters executed their revenge plots. Medea, Hamlet, Count of Monte Cristo. They were amateurs compared to what I was about to orchestrate. I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened my laptop. First stop, our joint bank accounts. In 12 years of marriage, Curtis had never once checked the transaction history. He trusted me completely with our finances, which was both sweet and incredibly stupid on his part. I transferred half of our savings into my private account, the one I'd maintained since before our marriage, the one Curtis had no idea existed. Not because I'd been planning for this moment, but because my mother, with 3 divorces under her designer belt, had drilled financial independence into me since birth. "Men are like mercury thermometers, Pearl," she'd say while reapplying her lipstick. "Fun to keep around until they break and poison everything." Next, I pulled up the deed to our Cancun property. Curtis had insisted on putting it solely in his name for tax purposes. I'd agreed because he'd made it sound complicated and boring, and because I trusted him. My mistake. But what Curtis didn't know was that Mexican property law had been the subject of my department colleague's doctoral thesis, and over many margaritas, she'd explained exactly how foreign-owned property worked in Mexico. I knew the property rights of a spouse better than Curtis knew his golf handicap. I emailed our family lawyer, Diane, who'd handled my parents' estate and knew more about my personal life than my own diary. Diane. Unexpected situation. Need to discuss rights to foreign property in divorce proceedings. Available today? Her response came back in 3 minutes. My 2 p.m. canceled. Come then. Bring documents. Are you okay? I typed back, never better. Finding your husband's infidelity before he remembers to flush is oddly empowering. I glanced at the clock. It was 9:27 a.m. Curtis would be lounging with Esme for at least 3 more days, completely unaware that his comfortable life was being dismantled from 1,000 miles away by a woman he'd grossly underestimated. I walked to our closet, the his and hers space that was 70% his because apparently custom-tailored suits required more real estate than a woman's entire wardrobe. Inside, I ran my fingers over his precious collection of ties, each one perfectly arranged by color and pattern. Curtis spent more time organizing these silk strips than he'd spent planning our anniversary last year. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the affair. This was about years of small dismissals, of not nows, and you're overreacting, and we'll renovate your office next year. This was about a man who'd been mentally checking out of our marriage long before he physically checked into our vacation home with someone else. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, scrolling through our carefully curated couples posts. The Holloways take Manhattan, anniversary dinner at Alinea, sunset in Santorini. We looked perfect. We were the couple other people envied. But as I studied Curtis's face in each photo, I realized something I'd been missing. He had the same expression in every picture, not of joy or love, but of someone posing for a corporate headshot. Presentable, appropriate, marketable. I set my phone down and laughed until tears came. All this time, I'd been married to a man who treated our relationship like a LinkedIn profile. Something to maintain for appearances, but not something that actually reflected who he really was. Well, Curtis, I said to our empty bedroom, I hope those curtains were worth it. Because, honey, the drapes are about to catch fire, and you don't even know you're still inside the house. I picked up my phone and sent another text to my husband. Quick question. Do you think those purple curtains in Cancun need dry cleaning? They might have witnessed things they shouldn't have. Then I deleted it before hitting send. The element of surprise was too valuable to waste on a momentary satisfaction. Instead, I started making calls. Because while Curtis was busy playing house with Esme in our vacation home, I was about to become the architect of the biggest demolition project of his life. And unlike my husband, I actually knew what I was building. By the time I walked into Diane's law office at 2 p.m., I'd gone through the 5 stages of marriage grief. Denial. Maybe it's a different pair of purple geometric curtains. Anger. I paid $200 for those curtains. Bargaining. Maybe if I'd gone on the trip, this wouldn't have happened. Depression. 12 years down the drain. And finally, acceptance. It's amazing how accepting you become when you're plotting someone's social and financial demise. Diane's office was exactly what you'd expect from Chicago's most ruthless divorce attorney. Minimalist, expensive, and slightly terrifying. Like walking into a West Elm showroom designed by someone who eats prenuptial agreements for breakfast. Pearl, Diane greeted me, not bothering to stand. Her handshake was firm enough to crack walnuts. Tell me everything and don't sugarcoat it. I'm allergic to sugar and lies. I pulled out my phone and slid it across her glass desk. My neighbor Esme posted this on Facebook this morning. Those are the curtains from our Cancun bedroom. My husband is supposedly helping a friend with construction in Mexico. Diane glanced at the photo, then back at me with the efficiency of someone who bills $750 an hour. And the ring? Wedding ring left on the bathroom counter. He forgot it. She nodded once. Classic Curtis move. I blinked. Excuse me? Oh, honey. Diane's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose a fraction. You're not the first Northwestern faculty wife I've met with this week. Curtis has quite the reputation at faculty events. I just never had confirmation until now. The air left my lungs like I'd been sucker punched by a tenured professor. There are others? Academia is a small world, Pearl. Smaller than the display of loyalty in Curtis's heart. Diane pulled out a legal pad. But let's focus on what matters now. You said the Cancun property is in his name only? I nodded, still processing the revelation that my husband's extracurricular activities were apparently common knowledge in academic circles. Had everyone been exchanging knowing glances behind my back at department parties while I proudly introduced myself as Mrs. Holloway? Good news! Diane said, typing rapidly on her computer. Mexico has some interesting property laws that might work in our favor. Also, I assume you want to absolutely destroy him? I smiled for the first time that day. I want him to feel like he showed up to teach a class and realized he forgot to wear pants. Amateur hour. I'm thinking we make him feel like he showed up to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award and instead got served divorce papers on stage while his tax returns are projected on the screen behind him. For the next hour, Diane and I constructed a plan so meticulously evil it would make Machiavelli take notes. She explained how we could not only get half of everything, including the Cancun property, but also how we could time everything for maximum impact. The key, Diane explained, isn't just winning. It's making sure he knows exactly why he's lost. Men like Curtis don't learn from their mistakes. They learn from their humiliations. As I left Diane's office with a folder full of legal documents and a heart full of vindication, my phone buzzed with a notification. Esme had posted again. Sunset cocktails on the private terrace Tator blessed. In the background, Curtis's arm was visible, his tan line where his wedding ring should be practically glowing white against his sunburned skin. I zoomed in on the photo, noticing they were drinking from the hand-painted margarita glasses I'd bought on our anniversary trip last year. The same glasses Curtis had called tacky tourist garbage when I brought them home. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity that only comes from sleeping 9 uninterrupted hours in a bed that no longer contained a cheater. I had work to do. First, I called Margot, the head of Curtis's department at the university. We'd become friends over the years, bonding over our shared love of obscure Russian literature and expensive Pinot Noir. Margot, it's Pearl. Got a minute? For you? Always. What's up? How's Mexico treating Curtis? I paused, savoring the moment. Funny you should ask. Curtis isn't in Mexico for construction. Well, he is in Mexico, but he's more focused on destroying something than building. Silence then. Oh, Pearl. No. Oh, yes. With Esme Wilcox, in our vacation house. They're drinking from my anniversary margarita glasses and posting it on social media like I don't have internet access. Margot's gasp was so dramatic I could practically hear her pearls clutching themselves. That absolute sandwich short of a picnic. What are you going to do? Well, that's partly why I'm calling. Doesn't the university have that big donor dinner next week? The one Curtis has been preparing for all month? The Whitman Foundation event? Yes. Thursday night. Curtis is giving the keynote. He's been insufferable about it, making everyone review his speech. The speech saved on our home computer? The one he asked me to proofread but then said my suggestions were undermining his academic authority? I could practically hear Margot's smile through the phone. Pearl Holloway, what exactly are you planning? Let's just say his presentation might need some last-minute edits. Nothing major, just some visual enhancements. After hanging up with Margot, I drove to our bank. Martin, our personal banker who'd handled our accounts since we moved to Chicago, greeted me with his usual enthusiasm. Mrs. Holloway, what a pleasure. What can I do for you today? I need to make some changes to our accounts, Martin. Curtis and I are restructuring our finances. 45 minutes and several signatures later, Curtis no longer had access to our joint savings account. I hadn't emptied it. I wasn't stupid. But I had made sure that any withdrawals now required my signature. A small insurance policy. On my way home, I stopped by our local locksmith, Tony, who'd helped us when we got locked out last winter. He remembered me instantly. The professor's wife. How's that front door lock working for you? Beautifully, Tony. But I'm actually here because I need to change it, and possibly add a few more. Tony raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? Just peachy. My husband's been so busy lately he keeps losing his keys. Thought I'd surprise him with a whole new security system. That's thoughtful of you. Oh, I'm just full of surprises lately. By that evening, I had new locks on every door, access to all our important financial accounts, and a dinner date with Diane and Margot to finalize what we were now calling Operation Curtain Call. As I sipped my wine at Gibson's Steakhouse, watching Diane and Margot plot Curtis's downfall with the enthusiasm of generals planning a major offensive, my phone lit up with another text from my oblivious husband. Miss you, babe. Project taking longer than expected. Might need to stay till Sunday. Don't worry about me. I showed the text to Margot, who snorted so hard she nearly shot Cabernet through her nose. The project is definitely taking longer than expected. Wonder if Esme knows she's being referred to as the project? Diane raised her glass. To Curtis Holloway, who's about to learn that "don't worry about me" is the academic equivalent of saying, "What's the worst that could happen in a horror movie?" I clinked my glass against hers, feeling lighter than I had in months. And to Custom Curtains, the unexpected heroes of this story. The waiter approached, refilling our wine glasses. "Celebrating something special, ladies?" I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes for the first time in days. "Just a little home renovation project. You could call it an extreme makeover." Margot leaned in, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. The demolition phase is always my favorite part. Friday morning arrived with an unexpected email from Dean Walter Palmer himself. The subject line read simply, "Confidential, department chair position." I nearly spit out my coffee. The department chair of comparative literature was retiring next semester, and the position was being offered to me? Now? The timing seemed almost too perfect. I opened the email with the caution of someone disarming a bomb. "Professor Holloway, in light of recent developments and your outstanding academic contributions, I'd like to discuss your potential appointment as the new department chair of comparative literature, effective next semester. Are you available to meet Monday at 10 a.m.? Regards, Dean Palmer." Recent developments? My cursor hovered over the reply button while my brain raced through possibilities. Could the dean possibly know about Curtis and Esme? Was this some kind of pity promotion? I called Margot. "Did you tell Dean Palmer about Curtis?" I demanded when she answered. "Good morning to you too, sunshine," Margot replied, the sound of espresso machine hissing in the background. And no, I didn't. "Why?" I read her the email. "Holy tenure track Batman," she whispered. "Palmer never makes these offers via email. This is unprecedented. But why now? The timing is suspicious." Margot's laugh sounded like ice cubes clinking in a glass. "Pearl, you adorable academic. Don't you see what's happening? The university knows." "Knows what?" "Everything. Academia is basically a high school with PhDs and parking privileges. Curtis's affair with Esme isn't his first rodeo. And apparently Palmer's had enough. Curtis was being considered for dean of faculty next year. But this little Cancun catastrophe might have just promoted you instead of him." I sank into my office chair, staring at the framed photo of Curtis and me at his department Christmas party last year. His arm around my waist, both of us smiling like we had secrets only we shared. Turns out one of us definitely had secrets. "Are you saying the university is offering me a promotion because my husband cheated on me?" "I'm saying the university is finally recognizing your worth while simultaneously distancing themselves from a liability. Two birds, one tenured stone. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" What indeed? I clicked reply and scheduled the meeting with Dean Palmer. After hanging up with Margot, I did something I'd been avoiding. I checked Esme's Instagram. There they were, Curtis and Esme, not even trying to hide anymore. A photo of them on a yacht, captioned, "Business and pleasure with the brilliant Dr. Holloway. Academics at play." I zoomed in on Curtis's face, sunglasses perched on his nose, arm casually slung around Esme's tanned shoulders. He looked relaxed, happy, unrecognizable from the man who'd told me just last month that he didn't have time for a weekend getaway because he was too swamped with department obligations. But it wasn't Curtis who caught my attention in the photo. It was what was visible on the yacht's table, a stack of papers with the Whitman Foundation logo clearly visible. I enlarged the image, squinting at the document. It appeared to be a grant proposal, a massive one based on the thickness of the stack. Why would Curtis bring foundation documents to a romantic getaway? Unless... I called Diane. "I need information on Esme Wilcox. Professional background, specifically any connection to the Whitman Foundation." Diane didn't even ask why. This is why she charges $750 an hour. Give me an hour. While waiting, I turned to my computer and pulled up Curtis's academic profile. My darling husband had recently published a groundbreaking paper on the economic impact of cultural exchange programs in North American universities. A paper I had proofread, edited, and practically rewritten sections of because, as Curtis had complained, the methodology chapter was killing him. A quick Google search of Esme Wilcox plus Whitman Foundation stopped my heart for a second. Esme wasn't just some random neighbor. She was the newly appointed director of academic grants at the Whitman Foundation, the same foundation that was hosting the donor dinner, the same foundation that controlled millions in university funding. Curtis wasn't just having an affair. He was sleeping his way into a major grant. When Diane called back, she confirmed my suspicions and added a delicious twist. Esme Wilcox, 36, 3 divorces, all from academic types. Previously worked at the Mellon Foundation, where she was involved in a scandal involving favoritism in grant distributions. Quietly moved to the Whitman Foundation 6 months ago. But here's the interesting part. She's only been your neighbor for, 3 months? About that, I confirmed, remembering how Curtis had been unusually helpful when Esme moved in, offering to show her around the building, the neighborhood, apparently his pants. Well, according to my sources, she specifically requested that unit. She could have had a larger one on the 8th floor, but she wanted 7B, directly across from you. My blood turned to slush. She targeted us? Me? Or more likely, Curtis. The timing aligns perfectly with when the Whitman Foundation would have been reviewing grant applications for this cycle. I felt the floor shift beneath me. This wasn't just an affair. This was calculated, premeditated. This was Curtis selling our marriage for a grant, and Esme buying academic influence with my husband. The betrayal had just leveled up from personal to professional. Diane, I said, my voice suddenly calm, I need to update our strategy. I'm listening. We're not just going after Curtis's personal assets anymore. We're going after his professional reputation. I want the university, the foundation, everyone to know exactly what kind of academic collaboration he's been engaged in. That's risky, Pearl. Academic scandal could splash back on you. I glanced again at the email from Dean Palmer. I don't think so. I have reason to believe the university is already distancing themselves from Curtis. And now I know why. After finishing with Diane, I spent the rest of Friday compiling evidence. I downloaded every photo Esme had posted, took screenshots of all their interactions, retrieved email correspondences between Curtis and the foundation that had come to our home address, and gathered copies of the grant proposal drafts I'd helped him with. By evening, I had assembled a comprehensive dossier that showed, beyond any reasonable doubt, that Curtis had engaged in an inappropriate relationship to secure funding. But I wasn't done. If I was going to burn down Curtis's career castle, I needed to make sure I had somewhere fireproof to stand. I spent Saturday preparing for my meeting with Dean Palmer. I updated my CV, gathered student evaluations, consistently higher than Curtis's, though he always claimed it was because I was an easy grader, and compiled a list of my publications and speaking engagements. While organizing my materials, I found something I'd almost forgotten, a letter Curtis had asked me to mail months ago. It was addressed to Professor Abigail Montgomery at Princeton, a leading figure in Curtis's field. I'd forgotten to mail it, and Curtis never followed up. Curious, I carefully opened it. Inside was a letter declining Princeton's offer for Curtis to join their faculty as a distinguished chair of economic cultural studies, a position he'd never mentioned to me. A position in New Jersey, a move he knew I wouldn't want to make because of my ties to Northwestern and Chicago. He'd made that decision without even discussing it with me. I carefully resealed the letter and placed it in my growing file of Curtis's greatest betrayals. It wasn't as flashy as the affair, but somehow it cut deeper. He hadn't just been unfaithful with his body. He'd been unfaithful with our future. Sunday morning, as I was finalizing my presentation for Dean Palmer, my phone buzzed with a text from Curtis. Coming home tomorrow afternoon. Exhausted, but project was a success. Can't wait to see you. I smiled at my phone, the kind of smile crocodiles give before they drag their prey underwater. Can't wait to see you either, I replied. I've been busy too. So many surprises waiting for you. He sent back a heart emoji. I set my phone down and looked around our apartment. At the new locks he didn't have keys for, at the empty closet where his clothes used to hang, now neatly packed in boxes in the storage unit, at the printer still warm from printing divorce papers. "Oh, Curtis," I said to the empty room. "You have no idea what kind of construction project I've been working on." Monday morning arrived with the crisp certainty of academic deadlines. By 9:30 a.m., I was seated outside Dean Palmer's office, dressed in what I called my intellectual dominatrix outfit, a perfectly tailored black suit that suggested both compliance with academic standards and a willingness to punish those who violated them. Palmer's assistant, Vivian, gave me a sympathetic smile. "He's ready for you, Professor Holloway." I entered his office carrying both my professional portfolio and the Curtis dossier. The dean rose from behind his massive oak desk, a desk that had witnessed more academic casualties than a freshman philosophy class. "Pearl," he said warmly, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the opportunity, Dean Palmer." He adjusted his glasses, the universal signal that an administrator is about to broach an uncomfortable topic. "Before we discuss the chair position, I want to address the situation with your husband." I kept my face professionally neutral, the same expression I used when students tried to explain why their papers were late. "I appreciate your candor, Dean. I assume you're referring to his relationship with Esme Wilcox from the Whitman Foundation." Palmer's eyebrows shot up so fast they nearly flew off his forehead. "You're aware of the situation?" "Dean Palmer, I not only know about it, I have documented it extensively." I placed my Curtis dossier on his desk. "What you may not know is that this relationship coincided suspiciously with grant application reviews and appears to have been strategically initiated." For the next 15 minutes, I outlined everything: the affair, the grant connection, the Princeton position Curtis had declined without consulting me. Palmer's expression moved from shock to dismay to what I can only describe as administrative terror. "This is highly concerning," he said finally. "Especially given the Whitman dinner this Thursday, where Curtis is scheduled to give the keynote," I added helpfully. Palmer rubbed his temples. "Pearl, I want to be clear. The chair position is being offered based entirely on your academic merits. Your publication record, teaching evaluations, and departmental contributions have been exceptional. This situation with Curtis is an unfortunate coincidence in timing." I smiled. "Of course, Dean. I would expect nothing less than merit-based decisions from Northwestern." By the time I left Palmer's office an hour later, I had accepted the position of department chair, effective immediately rather than next semester. Palmer had also agreed that I should present at the Whitman dinner instead of Curtis, to maintain the university's professional standards. As I walked across campus, my phone rang. It was Diane. "It's done," she said without preamble. "The Mexican attorney confirmed that as Curtis's spouse, you have equal claim to the Cancun property regardless of whose name is on the deed. And since you can prove the funds came from joint accounts, it strengthens your position considerably." "Excellent. And the other matter?" "The locks at the vacation house have been changed as requested. The property management company was quite understanding when I explained that the owner's wife was concerned about unauthorized access." I smiled. "Diane, you're worth every penny of that terrifying hourly rate. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. How did the meeting with Palmer go?" "Let's just say Curtis is about to discover he's not the only Holloway who knows how to climb the academic ladder." By noon, I was back at our condo, arranging the final pieces of Curtis's homecoming surprise. The movers had already taken his clothes and personal items to the storage unit. The locksmith had installed the new smart lock system that would alert me when someone tried to enter. The divorce papers were artfully arranged on the dining table with a single purple geometric fabric swatch placed on top. A little artistic touch I thought added just the right amount of narrative cohesion. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. The smart lock app alerted me. Unknown key attempted entry. Then came a text from Curtis. "Did you change the locks? I can't get in." I was sitting in my new office on campus. Nameplate already changed to Dr. Pearl Holloway, department chair. I texted back, "Oh, that's strange. I had to upgrade our security system. The code is 0310. The date, March 10th, when Esme had first moved into our building." 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Curtis had entered the apartment. I imagined him walking into the unnaturally quiet space, noticing first the missing photos from the walls, then the empty spaces where his awards had been displayed. I pictured his confusion as he walked toward the bedroom, finding his closet empty, his precious ties gone. Then his phone rang, not with my call, but with Dean Palmer's. Meanwhile, I sat in my new office, watching the clock. At precisely 2:30 p.m., the department administrative assistant knocked on my door. "Dr. Holloway? Dean Palmer asked me to deliver this." She handed me a thick envelope. Inside was Curtis's official letter of administrative leave pending an ethics investigation, effective immediately. Also included was the revised program for the Whitman Foundation dinner, with my name replacing his as the keynote speaker. At 2:45 p.m., my phone exploded with texts from Curtis. "What the hell is happening? Palmer just put me on leave. Where are all my things? Are these divorce papers? Pearl, answer me." I took a deep, satisfied breath and responded with a single text. "Check your email. I sent you some photos I think you'll find interesting." The email I'd scheduled contained selected images from my dossier, Esme's social media posts showing them together, the grant documents visible, all neatly compiled with timestamps and explanatory captions. My personal favorite was a side-by-side comparison of Curtis wearing the same outfit in our vacation home with Esme, and at a construction site he'd sent me as proof of his whereabouts. My phone rang. Curtis, obviously. I declined the call and texted, "I'm in a meeting. As department chair, my schedule is quite full. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, please contact the department secretary." By 4 p.m., academic gossip, which travels faster than light in violation of all known physics, had spread throughout campus. My office door remained closed, but I could hear the whispers, the shocked conversations, the occasional burst of inappropriate laughter. At 5 p.m., as I was preparing to leave, Margot appeared in my doorway, a bottle of champagne in one hand and 2 glasses in the other. "Is it too soon to celebrate?" she asked. I gestured her in. "It's Northwestern. It's never too soon for alcohol with a pretentious pedigree." She poured while updating me on the aftermath. Curtis tried to enter the faculty lounge and Whitman himself was there. Yes, the Whitman, who apparently flew in early for the dinner. Curtis had no idea and started ranting about conspiracy and sabotage. Security had to escort him out. I accepted the champagne flute with the grace of someone who hadn't just orchestrated her husband's professional execution. How unfortunate. Unfortunate. It's Shakespeare meets academic karma. Margot clinked her glass against mine. To curtains that reveal rather than conceal. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification. Esme had posted on Instagram, "Heading back to Chicago alone. Some partnerships aren't meant to last. Lessons learned." I showed Margot, who nearly choked on her champagne. She dumped him? After all this? Apparently, unethical professors with no job, no house keys, and pending divorce proceedings aren't as attractive as department chairs with grant influence. Margot's laugh echoed through my new office. "You know Curtis will try to explain, to justify everything." "Let him try," I said, sipping my champagne. "I've spent 12 years editing his work. I know all his weak arguments." As evening fell over Northwestern's campus, I walked to my car with the confidence of a woman who had not only survived betrayal, but had alchemized it into opportunity. Tomorrow, I would finalize the divorce paperwork. Wednesday, I would meet with the Whitman Foundation board to discuss future collaborations. Thursday, I would deliver a keynote speech at a dinner my husband had been planning for months. And somewhere in Cancun, a housekeeper was removing custom purple geometric curtains from a vacation home that would soon be listed for sale. The proceeds split according to the terms of a divorce agreement that Curtis would be too devastated to contest. As I drove home to my condo with new locks and old memories, I couldn't help but smile at how perfectly everything had unfolded. Some people teach literature, others live it. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most devastating plot twists happen to those who think they're writing the story. 6 months later, I sat in my expanded office, now with a window overlooking Lake Michigan, a perk of my recently approved promotion to full professor. On my desk sat a small purple fabric swatch framed in silver, a reminder of how quickly life can unravel and be rewoven into something unexpectedly better. The Whitman Foundation dinner had become academic legend. My keynote speech, titled "Transparency in Academic Partnerships," Building Ethical Foundations for Institutional Growth, was now required reading in the university's ethics course. The standing ovation I received lasted a full minute, though I suspect half of that time was fueled by the delicious awkwardness of the situation rather than my rhetorical brilliance. Curtis never showed his face on campus again. The ethics investigation concluded with a quiet resignation and academic censure. Last I heard, he was teaching introductory courses at a community college in Nevada, a state as far from academic prestige as it is from water. Esme Wilcox resigned from the Whitman Foundation 3 weeks after our return from Cancun. Apparently, this wasn't her first academic collaboration, just the first one that had spectacularly backfired. She sold her condo in our building and moved to Boston, presumably to find a new academic institution to infiltrate and new custom curtains to pose in front of. The divorce was finalized with surprising efficiency. Curtis contested nothing, signed everything, and disappeared from my life with the same stealthy selfishness with which he'd conducted his affairs. The Cancun property sold for a tidy profit, which I used to buy a lakefront cottage in Michigan where I now spend weekends writing my first non-academic book, The Literature of Betrayal, Cultural Narratives of Infidelity from Medea to Modern America. The irony is not lost on me. Dean Palmer retired last month, recommending me as his successor. The board is still deliberating, but the whispered consensus is that Pearl Holloway has become the unexpected phoenix of Northwestern's humanities department, the woman who turned personal catastrophe into professional ascendance, the professor who taught the most unforgettable lesson without ever entering a classroom. I often think about those purple geometric curtains. How something so innocuous, a decorative choice I had obsessed over for weeks, became the thread that unraveled my marriage, but knitted together a better life. If Curtis had simply closed them before taking that photo, would I still be living half a life? Would I still be editing his mediocre papers and managing his impressive ego? Would I still be the supporting character in my own story? Diane and I still meet monthly, though now it's for friendship rather than legal strategy. During our last lunch, she raised her glass and said, "To Curtis, the man too stupid to realize that when you marry the smartest person in the room, you shouldn't give them reason to destroy you." I couldn't argue with that logic. Margot became my closest ally during the transition, helping me navigate the treacherous waters of academic administration. "The difference between you and Curtis," she told me once over late-night grant proposals, "is that he saw relationships as transactions, while you see them as transformations." The Whitman Foundation, eager to distance itself from scandal, has become unusually generous with our department. Our latest grant, the one Curtis had been so desperate to secure, was approved with minimal revision. The foundation's new director, a brilliant woman with impeccable ethics and sensible taste in window treatments, has become a valued colleague. My mother called when the news of my promotion hit the alumni newsletter. "See?" she said, vindication dripping from her voice like expensive perfume. "What did I always tell you? Men are like mercury thermometers." "Yes, Mom," I replied. "Fun to keep around until they break and poison everything. And then you clean up the mess and buy a digital one," she finished triumphantly. As for me, I've learned a few lessons worth sharing. First, always go with custom window treatments. They're expensive, but the return on investment can be life-changing. Second, when your husband calls from a construction site in Mexico, ask for photos that include actual construction equipment rather than just his sunburned face against a generic wall. Third, academia rewards those who publish revelations, whether they're in peer-reviewed journals or the court of public opinion. And finally, the best revenge isn't just success, it's success that forces your ex to explain to everyone why you're succeeding without him. I haven't dated since the divorce. There's been interest. Apparently, female department chairs with lakefront cottages and publishing contracts are quite attractive to a certain type of academic man. But I'm enjoying the silence of my own company. The absence of someone else's ego taking up all the oxygen in the room is remarkably refreshing. Sometimes people ask if I'm bitter about what happened. I tell them the truth. I'm grateful. Grateful that Curtis was arrogant enough to think I wouldn't notice. Grateful that Esme was vain enough to post the evidence. Grateful that my professional value was recognized when my personal value was dismissed. Most of all, I'm grateful for the lesson I now teach to every female graduate student who enters my department. Your education isn't just what you learn in books. It's what you learn about yourself when the narrative you thought you were living suddenly shifts genres. As for Curtis, I hear the community college where he teaches doesn't have a window in his basement office. No need for curtains at all.